In today's episode, we're going to show you how to check your wheel bearings on your Nissan Patrol, and if they are worn out, a step-by-step breakdown on how to change your wheel bearings start to finish. Proudly supported by Ultimate 9, Tread, Opus Campers, Superior Engineering, and in part by... My car that we're going to be working on today is a 1995 TD42 Nissan GQ Patrol. It does have GU diffs under it, but I think, I'll double check with Berto here, I think wheel bearings are pretty much the same across GUs, GQs or year models. Like, is that right?
Yeah, they are.
Pretty much the same. You got it there, just so people know, like, what's a wheel bearing, what's it do?
So this is a wheel bearing. It connects your wheel hub, which rotates, to your diff, which is solid, which doesn't rotate. So it's what allows your wheel to actually spin. If you didn't have it, your wheel would just be locked.
So obviously pretty important, and there's something you need to regularly check and maintain.
Very important, especially when you put on bigger wheels, tyres and offsets. They wear out faster.
And when you're doing off-roading.
Yeah, and off-road and water crossings. If you don't have something that's sealing properly, water will get in, wear it out faster. But pretty much check them every service. They probably need an adjustment every 2 services, maybe 3 if you're lucky. So now, to check the wheel bearing, you have to jack the front up off the ground, the front wheel. So to do that safely, I've got jack stands and a jack, and I've got a wheel chock so it doesn't roll. Handbrake on, it's in gear. You want to find somewhere good to jack off as well. You don't want to be jacking off something round that's going to slide off. So I've got the bottom of the diff there, it's flat. So I'll jack this one side up, I'll put a jack stand up, and then I'll jack the other side. I'll even leave the jack there. You don't want to be just under a jack because it's hydraulic, so it can fail at any time. But so to check your wheel bearings, you want to grab each radius, like opposite radiuses of the tyre, and you can, move it forward and up and down's a good one, side to side. But side to side's harder because you get your steering in it. But if you just go straight up and down, if you have pretty well any movement, they're due for at least a check, tighten, or if they're contaminated with water or the grease is just old, it's probably best to either pull them out and inspect them or just replace them.
So how's that one look now?
For this one, not good.
Yeah, so you shouldn't have that sort of like clunky movement in them.
It shouldn't have any movement. I'll pull the wheel off. What do we have? We've got a lock nut tool. Not all cars will have a lock nut tool, but if your car does have different wheel nuts, you might need that. We have a rattle gun. Not everyone's going to be blessed with a rattle gun. You can do it with, you probably want something a bit bigger than this, but the way to do it is you'd have to put it back on the ground if you don't have a rattle gun, and then you crack them up loose. They're going to be pretty tight, so you're going to want bigger than that. That's not going to undo them for me.
So that way if the car does fall, it stops on the tyre.
If you're sitting here working, you got your legs under it, and that fails, that'll stop it from getting your legs. Ideally, you never really want to have your legs under it, but sometimes it's more comfy. If you've got all the safety equipment, you can sort of do it. Now I'm going to pull this hub off, so I'm going to undo 6 of these hub bolts, and then that hub will come off. Not all cars matter. This car, it could be locked, unlocked, it doesn't matter. But most cars, it's a good habit to just have it set to free, because if you don't, sometimes they fly apart on you.
And if people are doing patrols, this hub is a manual locking hub.
Yeah.
But there's also an auto hub.
Yeah.
And is it the same process to undo it?
It is. There's just a different circlip set up behind it, which I can show you that too when we get in there.
Okay.
So we've pulled him off. He's full of water and gunk. He hasn't been the happiest camper.
So we've been on quite a bit of rough terrain lately, and we kind of figured that my wheel bearings were going to be due.
No, we did a lot of water crossings, and
that's obviously not how it's meant to look in there.
Nah, it should be some nice clean grease. Maybe if it's dirty, some darker coloured grease. Shouldn't be water and rusty looking and just gunk. On a manual hub, to get further into here, we have a circlip on the end of the CV, which is this little fella. You need these special sort of circlip pliers. This is how you should be doing it. You want to make sure that doesn't go flying, and then once that's off, boom, and that off. So not everyone does it this way. I sort of clean everything as you go. So then when you go to pick it up later, you don't have to clean your hands again. It's the easiest way. So now that that's off, we have more water and grease in here. We're going to get rid of most of that, and it'll show us the locking screws. So there's a lock nut in there, like the nut itself, and then there's this locking plate, which is, it's tabbed. I'll show you it when we pull it out, but you need to undo these 2 screws. I didn't bring a pick, So I've got the next best thing, pointy test light. You just need to get in behind one of these holes, and then if you get it just right, you can flick it out. Give it a wipe off. So this is the locker ring. It's got multiple holes because they have them in all different spots, and then it's got the two tabs. So this is what stops it from unlocking. So once that's on with the screws in it, it can't physically get tighter or looser. They normally only get looser when there's like wear on the actual bearing. So that's the next step for that. We do have this tool. This is the specific tool for this. There's 2 holes in that nut, and that's what this tool has. You know, you put that on, and then you get the ratchet, and you can tighten or loosen. These are only about $20 or $30, but if you don't have one of these, if you have like a screwdriver or a punch, you can put it in the big hole where the tool goes, and you can just get a hammer, and like it's not going to be tight, so you can just undo it and then tighten it. You just give it a little bit until it lines up. That's the other right way to do it. Ours is going to need replacing, so I'm going to have to pull the brake caliper off. And then once I've got the brake caliper off, I can undo that, and then the whole hub will come off, and I'll go from there. They're 22. These bigger bolts here.
One at the top, one at the bottom.
So these are your slide bolts.
Yep.
I'm not going to touch them, but you can do it that way. And yeah, the big main ones, they are very important to be tight when you put them back on. They're probably going to be very tight when you do them, like undo them. There's no room for a rattle gun in here. So you want to have a pretty good bracer bar. So there's the 2 bolts. It'll just wiggle its way out. So that's it. So the next thing with this is you don't want anyone to press the brakes, because if you press the brakes will push out, and then you won't be able to get it back on. If you push them out all the way, your pistons will pop out, and then you have to take your brakes somewhere to get it rebuilt. The only other thing, which, you know, as long as you've got that down pat, you don't want to hang it off this brake line. So what we do, we'll swing it around over here to the radius arm where it's nice and stable, and then that's got no weight hanging on it. You don't want to damage your brake lines in any way. I'll go ahead and remove this wheel bearing nut.
So the mud and water's gone all the way through mine?
Yeah, 100%. Normally if one bit's wet, it's all going to be wet. I try to put everything down in order. So, you know, we've got lock nut, I'll put that on top of it. I'll put the screws in the middle, and I'll put the circlip with it. Then you know what way it comes off. If you're not sure, take a photo before you pull it off. So now that I've got that off, I'll just give this a little bit of a shimmy. It's heavy, be careful. It comes off. One wheel bearing in here, one wheel bearing out here.
The front one just pulls straight out?
Yeah, the front one will pull straight out. The back one's held in with the seal. I'll show you how to remove that one shortly. So I'm just wiping all the grease off so I can get an actual look at the bearing, because you don't always have to replace bearings.
Might just need a clean and a repack of grease.
Which sometimes it's just easier to, you know, if you have new ones, 70, 100 bucks, whatever they cost. By the time you spend a couple of hours getting all this grease out, because you want to have them spotless, you don't want to have any old grease in them if you're going to reuse them.
Yeah, right, you have to fully get
it out.
Yeah.
It's normally easier just to get new wheel bearing. The harder bit is they have the cone in there, which you have to hit out and hit in, which we'll show you how to do that shortly. Because you can't just go, oh, I've got a new bearing, I'm going to slap it in with the old cone. Because they run on each other, so they're wear mated. You can't mix and match bearings and races, and they don't look good. So if we look on here, see how it's like a different colour?
Yeah.
How it's like silver here and then black here? These little rollers have like a hard coating, and that's what wears. So I'd say water's got in there, it's got a little bit, you know, oxidised, and it's ripped that hard coating off. So that's why there's heaps of play in it. So we'll replace both of these, inner and outer. It's a very dirty job, you want to have lots of rags. So the next thing will be dig all this old grease out. You don't like getting dirty, you probably wear gloves. To get this back bearing out, I've got an oval punch, big flat, not sharp. So what I'm hitting on here is the back bearing. So currently I'm just going to get the back bearing and the seal out. So that's the race. And that's the bearing just there. That bearing's stuck in there by this seal. Like that seal you tap into there. Yeah. And that holds the bearing from coming out. So if I hit that bearing, it'll knock that seal out. We have a new seal, a new bearing. If you get a kit, it'll come with bearing and the race. They always come together. And it'll come with a seal too. I'm going to put this big punch in on that bearing. Sometimes if you hit it one way and it doesn't go out, you hit it the opposite side, because you don't want it twisting in there and then binding up. So now I have the outer bearing. I'm not going to clean it because I already know the front one's buggered, so I'm going to replace it. Yeah, straight in the bin. Straight in the bin. The rear seal too also goes in the bin. So this is what was holding that in. The next step will be to get out the races. It's a hard one to see in here, but in here we got the bearing race, and then every now and then you dig the grease out. There's a deep bit. That deep bit is for getting an oval race or a punch in, and that's where you tap it out. So these are like a pressed in sort of thing, like they're an interference fit. So they don't just fall in and out, they're in there. Like you have to really sort of wallop them out to get them out. And you want to go side to side on this every time. Because it'll go a little bit, and then a little bit. So I've got a bearing race out, and I've got the eggshell. So the eggshell is what spaces that out. If you don't have that eggshell, your hubs won't work properly because they'll load up and then that'll spring in too far. So this is the bearing race. I'll clean one up so I can show you.
So this eggshell thing, that doesn't get replaced?
It's part of the hub. Nah, it doesn't get replaced.
Yeah. And that's only in with the inner bearing?
No, that's in the front one.
Yeah, okay.
You can normally pull it out, but some of them are in there. That's that race with all the marks on it from the rust. It's no good. You don't want it. You don't want any perfection. It's meant to be like a shiny, dead smooth, perfect finish. How this works is, you know, race, bearing. The inside of the bearing goes on the spindle, and that's what connects the diff to the hub. And then there's them rollers, and then the outer cage, and then them rollers run on this race, and that's how you get the rotation. That's how a bearing works. So we've got one out. Now I'll flip him over, because each race only goes in from the one side. There's a big metal lip. No matter how hard you hit it, you're never getting it out. So this one also has, you know, you can see the race barely, but then it's got the two cutouts for hitting it out. So one here and one here. Like, you do have to hit this pretty good. Like, you're never getting it out tapping it. Like, some of them do take a fair bit. I'm just going to move back a bit because I'm on...
pretty close to that.
Like, if you have a nice workbench, you can do this on a nice workbench, but this sort of gives you the feel. If you're on the side of the road, this is how you're going to be doing it.
Yeah, this is...
You'll be lucky to have this many tools on the side of the road. Very important to go to side on each of these, because if you don't, it twists, and then you keep hitting it and it just twists out. It'll actually make this hole not round where it lives, and then it'll be loose, and then you have to replace this whole hub. So that's the back one out. It's the same as the front, it's just bigger. Next thing to do now, we give this a good clean out. You also give this a wipe off. This is your spindle where it goes. So we have a few different surfaces on this that have to be good. Back flat, where the seal runs. The long pointy side goes into the hub. So this side here, it goes up on that, stops water from coming in. So you need to make sure that side's nice and clean. You can pretty much see where it's been running, so you don't have to clean all the way out. As you can see, this car isn't the cleanest. Someone needs to clean his car better. I'll give it a good wipe off. So yeah, you can see where the seal is. It'll be fine. Where the bearings run, so the inner bearing sits on this big flat. You can see the discoloration where it's had water in there, starting to oxidise. You just want to be feeling that there's no big edges that'll catch your fingernail on it. So, like I'm talking, you can see like there's a dark bit. You can't feel that with your nail.
Yeah.
You come to like a brake caliper, you got this rotor, you feel that with your nail. That's a big one, but like, if you can feel anything with your nail, it's probably too big.
Yeah.
And if they are worn, they normally wear on the bottom side, there's all the weight. And it's good, because if that is worn, the bearing will be loose. Like the bearing is like a precise fit on that. Like it doesn't have any play on that. If you've got play on that with the bearing, you need to get a new one of these.
So if you got to that and it was worn, what would you need to do? Like order a new stub axle?
Order a new stub axle, yeah.
Yeah. And so you just have to unbolt like that off and...
Yeah, which we've already pulled the circlip off for the manual hub, which is out on the outside.
Yeah.
But if you had auto hubs, this circlip actually sits in here on this groove. So that's the only two differences. So if you pull an auto hub off, you probably don't have to pull this circlip off for wheel bearings. It'll be fine.
Yeah, okay.
But if you had to replace the stub axle, you'd have to pull this off. That's the only differences. And then there's the inner race, and then there's the outer race. You check both, that'll be fine. If you can feel it, or you know you're not happy with it, I'd be getting a new one.
Yeah.
And like sometimes the bearings weld themselves to that. If they do that, you literally have to flog that off with a copper hammer. Then the only way is to unbolt the stub to get the last bearing off, or you can cut it off with a grinder. I'm not going to show you how to do that. It's not fun. But
so is that if they're just so worn out that they literally melt onto the stub axle?
Yeah, so when they get really loose, they'll spin on that, and then they'll just get hot, and it'll weld on. You won't get it off.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you obviously need a new stub axle when it comes to that point.
Yeah, exactly. I think next step will just be a whole bunch of clean up, and then I'll show you how to pack some bearings and bang some cones in. So I've cleaned all that up in there, which is where the new racers go. So now I'm just getting the correct tools to put them in. So we have a bearing and seal driver set.
So that's sort of you need to get one of them for this job.
You don't. You can do it without it, but this is the easiest way. I've got the bearing seal thing. We'll pretend we don't have that for a second. If you don't have that, you'd have ideally not an oval punch. You get your hammer and you have like a normal punch, like a flat punch. So the secret to these is, you know, you tap them, you get them started, and you go around. And it'll make its way in. You got to make sure too so this is the back one, it's the big one. You have to have the taper gets smaller going in. If you have it just like the flat way where there's no taper, you'll never get a bearing. So they go taper out. We try and hit this even. We get him down. This is if you don't have this tool. And then you get the punch, and then you just go around the very edge of it, gently. And I'm talking like, you tap it like, you can tap it harder, but if it goes crooked, it's harder to fix. But if you just tap it slowly and go around, it'll work its way down. And then I'll use the correct tool now, and I'll show you how you can tell it's down once it's down. I should clarify, when you tap these in, you don't want to damage this flat surface at all. Any nicks and imperfections is going to wear the rollers out, and like, you got to think, them rollers don't, it's not only going to wear one roller, because they're always fully rolling. So they roll like that, and they spin in there as well. So like, they're constantly spinning. You have one imperfection, it's going to take all of these out. I have seen where people tap them in too hard or with the wrong stuff and they chip the edge of this. You can get away with it for temporary, but it's not ideal. You want these to be like perfect. These bearing presses, these are alloy, these are soft. It doesn't matter how hard you hit these into that, it's going to damage this before it damages that. Is that stainless? That's
like some sort of harder material.
It's hardened steel. Like,
yeah.
I don't know exactly what it is. This has a handle you can hold, and then you hit the top. It's soft. I use a normal hammer, and you know, you set him in. It's funny, Patrols don't have one of these that fits, but because it's soft, you can sort of just hold it dead flat and hit it and you'll be fine. You hear that change, how it went from really tinny to really deep? That's how you know it's all the way home. If you're unsure, the sound is the easiest way, but if you're unsure, you can come all the way through here and you can see that that's bottomed out in the gap. Where you hit it out normally, it's bottomed out. I've got the front race, the little race. I'll make sure that it's also, you know, skinny side of the race, flat, always goes out. So that one will slide in a little bit, but it still needs to go the rest of the way home. Figure out which one of them fit. And we do the same thing for that one. Change that sound, it's home. So they're both in, they're both home. Most important thing with the clean bearings, like the new grease, is to keep everything clean.
So when you're wheel bearing shopping, we normally go for Japanese stuff, don't we?
Japanese, you can't beat Japanese for precision in any of their machining. So they always have tip-top like quality stuff rather than like a Chinese bearing. They just use better metal. I don't understand, they're the best at everything.
So once you open a bearing box, you're looking at...
Some brands give you a sticker. It's nice of them. We have the seal, and this model doesn't use this washer. This is like an early style GQ. There's only one Patrol out of GQ and GU that have this, and it's the early series one. They have two locking nuts, like actual hex nuts, instead of that single and then the plate.
So any Patrol you do is going to look like what we've done today, but if you're doing a series 1 early GQ, it's going to look slightly different in there.
You can convert it, so you can buy the newer style and use that, and it's heaps better. They come loose way less. So this is the seal, comes with that. That's only for between those two nuts. You bend them over and that stops it from undoing. It's got the one tab. And then we have outer bearing and a rear bearing. Some kits come with the outer gasket. This one doesn't. Normally swivel hub kits and everything come with the outer gasket, but this is just sort of like a basic wheel bearing kit with a good seal and good bearings. High temperature wheel bearing grease. It's automotive, industrial. You can use marine too. Like if you're going to get a lot of water in there, do a lot of crossings, you can use marine grease. It's a bit more resistant to water than this grease. I'll show you how to pack a bearing the old school way if you're on the side of the road. So I always start with the littler bearing. I just do. You don't have to. I just do. So I'm gonna grab a fair scoop of grease. You know, you can have dirty hands. It's gonna be fine. The grease is clean. You're gonna put it on your palm on this edge. This edge here, you have to put the grease in through that. So you don't want to just, you know, it looks like this when you do it, but you're not just slapping it. You're pushing it down into your palm and like scooping. on that angle so it goes in.
So just to show exactly where you're trying to get grease,
In there.
you're trying to get it in the middle through all those rollers the whole way around.
The whole way around. How you know you've got enough grease is when you pack it all the way from the bottom, it starts coming out the top. And you need to do that the whole way around. So I've just done that one bit. I'll turn it just a little bit. I'll do the next bit. It's starting to come out. So I've gone the whole way around now. It's obviously got squashed with my hand while I'm grabbing it. But as you can see, it's the whole way around, the whole way around. You don't want to go too overkill, but you can wipe some around the outside. As long as you've got it all in, you want to make sure it's coming out all of them. Because if you're not, as soon as it spins, it'll move and it'll be not full. Nice and clean. I'll put this down and do the next one. I'll put it in the box. Box is clean. So I'm going to do the same for the big one. It's bigger, it's going to take more grease. So same principle, but it takes longer. So there's a little void in between the two. If you put a little bit of grease, you don't have to put grease in there, but if you do put grease in there, your bearings are dirty and it's clean on the inside, you can pull the bearing out, clean it, and use that grease. Or it also keeps, it's more of a layer when water is going in there. If you've got more grease, it's less likely to make it the whole way through. And you wipe around all them voids like that I cleaned out where we punched them, just in between them, on the races, you know, light little cover, just like that. And in there, that's where you want it. Next thing I can do, a bit more grease on this spindle. Bit of grease where the bearing goes. You want to grease these threads too. And then we also want to put a little bit of grease where that seal goes. And that is just so that when you put a seal on, it's not exactly like dry. The dry seal, you can burn the seal and then it won't seal. So you put a bit of grease on there and saves that from happening. It takes 2 seconds. Some people don't do it. Oh no, I think it's best practice to do it. We've got the big back bearing, drop him in. I wipe the extra grease down around the back of it. You know, as you put it in, some pushes up. These seals say bearing side, but just make sure if you've got this side, bearing down, and if you have these ones, I'll clean it off so you can see really good. This high lip side goes to the bearing, so that this side here with the double lip goes to the back. Yeah. Very important. Have it the wrong way, let water straight in. One of those seal drivers aren't big enough for this. You get your hammer. On the high side, you give it a little tap, and then you work your way around. Sometimes it don't go. If it doesn't go, you don't want to just, when it's real angled up, you don't want to just hit it, because you'll bend this metal bit of the seal, and then it'll never go. And if it does go, it'll never seal. He's home, he's chilling. I'll put some grease just on the seal. So you can do this 2 ways. Put that on without the outer bearing on, or the way I normally do it is you whack that in, but you want to make sure if you put it in this way, that when you pick it up, you don't tip it and it falls in the dirt and you got to clean it and repack it. Yeah. I pick it up like that, fingers on the outer one, slide him on, retain the fingers on it. Slide him in. You get it most of the way home like that. You can see this is the side that's been on the bearing, it's clean. There's no mark. These can get grooves in them too, but it's pretty like you have to have a wheel bearing loose for a long time to get a groove in that. I'm just going to put it back the way it has been. You can put it either way, doesn't matter. Best practice is put it back how you got it. It was there before it worked, it's going to work again. You get that started with your fingers, you want to make sure it, you know, one. It's normally easier 2 fingers, you get even pressure, but 1 finger, you don't want to have that thing cross-threaded. Special tool will do it up. It's meant to be good practice. You get him all the way home. I'm going to give him a nip. So you don't normally do it that tight when you do it, but if they're new bearings, you do that. So it makes sure all the races are home correctly and that your seal's all the way back. If you just do it till it's nipped and nothing's home, as soon as you drive it'll be loose. So you want to give it a nip and then back him back off. Back him like right off. And then I'm not giving it anything, this is 1 finger. And when he's home, like that. That's going to be pretty good. Before you finish locking it up, putting all this back on, you're meant to have the wheel on, and then you'll check for play and spin. But now I'm going to put the brake on. Once the brake's on, I'll be able to put the wheel on, and then I'll check it, and then if it's loose or needs to be tighter or whatever, I'll do that with the wheel on. Easiest way not to break your back, doing that, use your legs. Pick it up with your knees. Either that or you can get a bar under it. You can either leave the brake off for now, put the wheel nuts back on, or you can do the brake and everything, but I'll just do it this way. So feel that. No up and down. Spins good. That's going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
So next thing to do after you get that right, the locky fella. I'll give you one last clean. I like it being clean. Clean, it has to be clean. Most important thing, it's clean. Don't forget clean. Half the time you can sort of look. Like there's a tab here, you can see where the tabs go. If they line up with a screw, you should be pretty good, but half the time you can't tell. So it's close, but it's just too far from those two, like around tight. So what I'm gonna do, pull them back out.
So what's happened here is you've gone to put the locking nut on, but it doesn't line up with the holes. So
Yeah.
you need to loosen or tighten it a little bit so it
Yeah.
lines up.
Which I'll tighten it a little bit. You see how I didn't have it crazy tight to start with. You know, you can give it a little bit. You don't want to give it too much. Not quite.
Yeah.
I reckon that'll go.
So is there only 2 holes that have threads in them for
There's
the screw?
4 with threads.
Okay, but you just said you just pick 2.
Yeah, well, you'll either be able to see 2 or not 2. So they're not exactly like a perfect. There's 2 here and then there's 2 sort of like offset.
Yeah, okay.
So like they line up every half a hole sort of thing. And boom, I've got one started. You normally get, even if they're off a little bit, you can normally get one started. You want to make sure they both start easy, because you don't want to cross thread these or anything. Boom, it started easy too, so I'm going to do him up. They're tight. Don't be swinging off these things, but you want to give them like a good firm. He's on there. So now I'm going to pull the wheel back off. I'll put the brake on, but that's the wheel bearing on, adjusted. Other than putting the hub back on, the brake back on, that's a wheel bearing done. So now I'm on reassembly. If you played Lego as a kid, you'll be good at it.
Yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom. A little bit of dust, wipe him off. The next important thing, right, when you're putting your brake back on, I'm gonna get some Loctite, but before that, this comes off, right? And as it comes off, it does like a, a 180. If you twist that and then put it on, this will either be twisted like this and have a knot in it, and when you turn it'll be too short, and if you brake and turn with that twisted, it'll either not brake, or it'll break and then it won't unbrake, it'll stay like the pressure. So you need to make sure that when you pull that off, you're very aware of that, and then when you put it back together, you're more aware. But it needs to look right when it goes back on. So it's in, I've got to put the bolts in obviously, but that's just a perfect bend. Yeah. That's how it should be. It catches young players out if you're not experienced. I've seen it on a car at a previous work, someone did it and then the car went out. We put the brakes on and the brakes just locked up, couldn't get them off. Had to unbolt it. It's good if it does lock on, you're in more trouble if it does stop.
Yeah.
Someone's going to be driving, boom, in the back of them. So that's probably the most important, be careful, could kill someone, bit of Loctite. So we're going to put, that's going to be enough. That come out quicker than I thought.
And why are we putting Loctite on these bolts?
They're brake bolts. They're pretty important.
Don't want them coming undone.
Don't want them coming off. So every little extra bit of safety. Boom.
Pretty much whenever you're working on cars, brakes, steering components.
Brakes and steering are your number one. You can't steer, you crash. You can't brake, you crash. I'll start these. You really want to make sure they start with your fingers. Don't want to cross thread brake bolts. Bad time. Sometimes they're not exactly lined up. You just got to wiggle them, keep twisting them. So that's going in. I wind it in as far as I can with my fingers. Put your body weight into it. She's tight. She's Loctited. She's not going anywhere. Reassembling the hub. That's clean. So this is the egg ring. It goes in this hub.
That was the one that got stuck earlier, didn't it?
Sure did.
So normally when you're pulling it apart, that would like come out in the beginning.
It's hard with this style wheel nut to get in behind it. So it normally stays in until you bang the race out.
Yeah, okay.
But as long as you know it's got to be there. Like these are, I just push that with my fingers. I'm only using this because like I can't push my fingers around a corner. Just gentle. Hear that? That's home.
Yeah, okay.
All this is a cup for this to stop it. So like if you put that in without this, it'll have that much slop. So it'll be, you'll probably explode a hub. So next step, pull this CV out as far as it goes, just with your hand, rag.
And the reason for that, because this happened to me once, is they click in a bit and then it doesn't go on properly.
Yeah. Lock rings, screws, wheel nuts like done. This thing goes in first, and then that cup for this, and this will go on. Write him down. You gotta make sure he comes all the way out. On the edge of this circlip, there's sort of two little divots there, but these flat ones, they're the sort you want to do it, the easiest. Put him on the edge so that it doesn't go within the diameter of that. The way to know that he's in there is you can see in the little slits, but if you can spin it around in the groove like this, you know, like that. It's pretty hard with your fingernail, but you know, if you get the tool, it spins in that groove, it's in. If it's not in, you won't be able to spin it because it'll just be like tensioned on the outside. You give these on the teeth, so these teeth is where it locks. You don't want to like cake it full of grease. You put too much grease in and it won't engage because the grease hydrolocks. You just want to give it like a wipe, so it's got some lubrication, so when it does engage, it engages. Because once it's engaged, there's no real slip or movement, like it doesn't need to be lubed. But it's just that initial when you twist it. I'll do the same for this once I clean it. I'll get rid of all these bolts out of here for now. It's full of dirt, muddy water. We're going to clean it as best as we can. We're not going to do a full disassemble of this today, because you can pull these like fully apart. Normally you don't have to. Normally these are good to go. And like you can see if these are worn where they engage on the corners of the teeth. Like there's a little bit of shine to it, but nothing crazy. But they lose their sharp edge, and that's when they'll start playing up on you. Get anything, get as much of it as you can, and then replace it with good grease. Where all the teeth go and the mechanism goes, I'll try and push it down into where the mechanism goes, like where it twists. Always work it a few times to get it, you know, in the moving parts. I am about to put this hub on, so I've got a bit of gasket maker, you know, silicon sealant, RTV, spodgy, silicon, silica, whatever you want to call it. RTV, silicon, adhesive and sealant.
And what's the idea of doing this?
Stop water coming between these surfaces. So they're metal and metal, not a perfect seal, always. So this will fill any imperfections. You don't have to spread that around with your finger, like it'll squish and go where it needs, but I want to be sure. Start these all with fingers. Go opposites, so it goes in flat. I'm not putting these super tight with this, but I'll check them once the wheel's back on the ground. But that's all nuts together. Only thing left to do is put the wheel back on. No, same thing, start all these by hand. Don't want nothing cross-threaded. It's not free Loctite. Because if you use snapper start or cross-threader start and you can't get it on there, you need to fix it. Guess what you have to undo to get them out?
What?
The wheel bearings. Just a FYI. You don't want to have the biggest Milwaukee. So when you put your wheel nuts on, you go one and then opposite, and then because it's a 6 stud, you don't just go to your next one, you go opposite diagonal in like a star pattern,
yeah,
and then
okay.
it pulls flat.
Yeah.
And then like, this is only a little gun, this isn't going to be the final torque, so we'll put that on, they're tight enough. I'll now have to put it down on the ground, get a torque wrench, and I'll torque these up to 120 newton meters in the same pattern.
We have to do the other side now, because the other side's stuffed too. But once we get the car back down the ground, then we'll give the final torque on the wheel nuts with the torque wrench, so we'll get a couple of shots when that's done.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's pretty much a whole step-by-step wheel bearing process complete.
So, got the torque wrench, mate. We go over newton meters, 122 is what I've got it set to. 120 is about what we aim for. You don't have to do it that many times, I was just double checking.
Making sure.
I normally go crisscross, and then the last one I'll just go around in a circle.
Now we've laid out all the tools that you need for this job. We've got them here, so we'll run through them.
But this isn't needed.
Yeah, I suppose that's not needed. We will use that. That's a rattle gun, but you can just get away with a socket.
Not all cars, but this is a lock nut tool to get your wheel off. Another socket to get your wheel off. So our car uses a 19, might be 1921. You have to use what your specific wheel nut is. The brakes on Patrols. GQ, GU, don't know about MQ, probably the same to be honest. 22. This is an oval punch, you'll need that. That's for getting bearing races out, as you would have seen. The freewheeling hub, so as far as I'm aware, as long as you don't have aftermarket hubs, so some aftermarket hubs are 10 mils and 12s. Genuine, the Chinese ones, auto hubs, they all take an 8 mil Allen key. A good ratchet / breaker bar. Doesn't have to be ratcheting, but it sure helps when you're trying to undo stuff. Just got to be big so you can get the brakes undone, they're pretty tight. Or if you don't have a rail gun, to get the wheels off. So that's what we need. We need a Phillips head screwdriver, a number 2 size, a good hammer, Not necessary, but this is the actual Series 2 and GQ and GU wheel nut tool. If you don't have that, you can either use a punch or that for this. What is going to be necessary is a set of circlip pliers to get the hub ring off. Very important. What else we needed today was a seal pick with like a little hook pick so I can get the lock ring off. I didn't have one, so I improvised. I've got a multimeter. It's pointing. It works. You're just picking out a little thing. You just need something pointing. You obviously need grease for wheel bearings. You'll need Loctite. You don't need Loctite, but it's advised to use Loctite. It's also advised to use some silicone to seal everything up, like that hub that doesn't have a gasket. That's probably about all you need that for. And to actually put the races in, a bearing and seal driver set.
And some wheel bearing grease.
And I would recommend rags.
Yeah.
Like, unless you got lots of paper bark, rags.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully everyone enjoyed if you watched this video all the way through. Obviously, like, I've done wheel bearings in episodes before, but we thought we'd just do a whole episode dedicated wheel bearing, how to do, detailed, start to finish. You can watch it as you're doing the job yourself, and what you could even do is save, download this video, put it on a hard drive or whatever, so if you're away out on the tracks, no reception, middle of nowhere, you got to change a wheel bearing, then you can try and get the job done. We'll try and do a few of these like midweek episodes, how-to videos, so if you've got a particular request.
If you don't like it, let us know, mate.
Yeah. Any particular things you do when you do a wheel bearing, let us know. Any questions, let us know. That's it.
If I'm doing wrong, let me know.
Yeah. Alright, we'll see everyone in the next episode. That's it.